Pokemon Black and White are debatably some of the best Pokemon games ever made. People love the Gen 5 games, which is Black and White 2, which I've always thought it's really cool that there is a Black and White 2. I just recently picked it up, by the way, and I haven't started the game yet. I haven't played it, but I really, really want to. I'm trying to get myself through, like, the post-game content of Pokemon Black and White, but it's just hard finding the time to, like, really sit down and thoroughly go through that. So soon, I'm gonna start Black and White 2. I'm sure you guys have seen just hundreds of people talk about how Pokemon Black and White or Black and White 2 are their favorite Pokemon games. Obviously, everyone has a different opinion, though, but I would say that's a very popular opinion. And it begs the question, will Pokemon Black and White 3 ever happen? My theory is no. My thoughts say no. I definitely think it's possible. Like, it's definitely 100% possible, as anything is. You know what I'm saying? Like, anything in life is really possible. They could literally give us Scarlet and Violet 2 if they really wanted to, but they probably won't. You know what I mean? And I have several reasons here as to why I think Black and White 3 are never going to happen. Also, guys, I just want to quickly mention that I have channel memberships on now, and if you guys want to support the channel a little bit, you can become a member. Obviously, there's no pressure, there's no worries if you guys don't want to. Eventually, I want to get to a point where I'm making some cool, like, behind-the-scenes footage, or maybe you guys can view some videos early and stuff like that, but it's never going to take away from my regular videos. So I'm always going to be doing, my regular videos. Game Freak and the Pokemon Company, they like to move on and kind of just advance the Pokemon franchise as a whole. While Black and White 2 was still a sequel, it really showed that they really still wanted to advance the series in a lot of ways. And I would say, like, the main way that they're advancing just Pokemon as a whole is just the entire gameplay, like open world. They tend to always focus on the core gameplay with every single generation of Pokemon. Like, every gen Pokemon game looks pretty different from the last, like, for the most part. After Generation 5, we started to get the 3D graphics, starting with X and Y, then we got some more open world elements in Sword and Shield, Scarlet and Violet, different battle mechanics. Pokemon Legends Arceus was a huge way that they could give us some brand new gameplay and just a whole different, like, core feel of how a Pokemon game really is, which I think is a good thing that they're advancing. And let's just say in the very rare chance that we actually got a Black and White 3 one day, it probably would be open world or some sort of 3D game. Like, I don't really see them giving us the old OG Pokemon games. One day I really think they're going to give us another Pokemon games with, like, the pixel graphics and those sort of animations in a future game in that same format where it's kind of the top-down POV. I guess you could say that Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee were like that, but just in a 3D way. But, like, I mean actually, like, with the original graphics and stuff. I think they could do that one day, but they probably won't. There's really no real reason for them to do that other than just a fan request, which I think the game would sell great if they did. Like, I genuinely believe that if they did make an OG Pokemon game again, it would do so well. I think everybody would buy it. So the storyline was pretty much concluded with Generation 5 games, but you can always add more to a story. Like, realistically, you can always go back and kind of add on to something, or maybe go down some parallel version with that same story and, like, add on to it. So I don't necessarily think they'd ever, like, add on to Black and White 2, like, after, maybe, centuries after those events or decades or something. If they're ever going to go back to the Black and White games or Generation 5, I really think it's going to be in a Legends form. I think it's perfect for them, and I think that ever since they've opened the Legends series, it's given them a whole different perspective of what they could really do, because with the Kalos region, we're going back to Lumio City, which is pretty interesting just because it's in the city, and rather than giving us a new region such as the Hisui region, which is like the ancient version of the Sinnoh region, essentially. So rather than that, we actually are going back to somewhere that we already have been, but we're going to have a completely different perspective, which is what I'm most excited about for Legends ZA, and I think that's what they would do with Generation 5. Obviously, Unova region is pretty much based on New York City, so there's a huge city format right there that they could literally put a Legends game in. However, I don't think that we'd ever get another Legends game just based in the city like we're going to have with Lumio City. This is probably a one-time thing that they're doing with Legends ZA just because of how different it is. And if we were to go back to Generation 5, they would do something unique for sure, and I don't know whether that would be an ancient version of the Unova region or maybe a future version of the Unova region. They do have demand for Black and White 3 or a Legends Unova or a Legends Kyurem, whatever you guys would want to call it. I think Legends Kyurem would probably be the best, but there's 100% demand because so many people talk about it. It's been a debate for years, and they've never done like a third installation to a Pokemon game. You know what I mean? Like, having Black and White 2 was super unique. There's Ultra Sun and Moon, and then there's no third version of a Pokemon game. And I know you could be thinking about like, oh, what about Pokemon Emerald? That's not what I mean by third version. Technically that is a third version, but it's technically not. So what I mean by that is like a complete third addition to a series of Pokemon games. It's just such a big topic, like that always has people responding to comments and just people communicate and discuss it constantly. And it could be just some sort of other spin-off if we ever go back to the Unova region. The Legend series is kind of a spin-off. It's still a mainline game. Like, there's still mainline storylines in games, but in a way, it's a little bit of a spin-off to the typical brand new region or generation of a Pokemon game. You know what I mean? In the future, they could do some sort of new type of game that wouldn't necessarily be called Legends, but it would still be an open world new experience that we could see where we can revisit the Unova region. And I also think that Game Freak doesn't really want one specific region or generation to feel too repetitive, even though we never go back to one generation too many times, although they do seem to love the Kanto region. We know that Game Freak loves Kanto, as, you know, everyone pretty much does. I really don't think we're going to get a new Generation 5 game for a long time, because Generation 5 is also up next for remakes, so we're probably going to get Generation 5 remakes 2027, maybe 2028, definitely after Generation 10, which is probably 2026. Obviously, these are not confirmed dates. These are just what everyone's kind of saying online, and definitely makes sense. I could definitely see all those being the dates for these future games. But since the Black and White remakes would be coming out, it wouldn't really make sense for them as a company and a business to give us a Legends Kyurem like 2 or 3 years after. So we'd probably go back to the Unova region for a spin-off or potentially Black and White 3, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be a Legends game. It could be like in the 2030s. It could be years and years from now. Although they could give us a total curveball and give us Legends Kyurem over Black and White remake. It's definitely possible. We don't know that far. We don't really know anything past Generation 10. Obviously, they're working on Generation 10, and those games are going to come out. But overall, I'd say just since the technological advances with, you know, 3D models, better graphics, different gameplay mechanics, and kind of just the gaming industry as a whole moving towards 3D open world games, we'd probably get a Legends game or some sort of game similar to that, and not a direct sequel, I guess you could say, to Black and White 2. They also wouldn't want to revisit the same storyline too many times, so if we do go back to the Unova region, it's not going to be the same, like, it's not going to follow the same storyline that we already know. It's going to be something totally new, which I'm down for. And they also may not really want to, like, tamper with a new Generation 5 game, just because of the success of Black and White and Generation 5, like, over the years. Obviously, the games themselves didn't sell so well compared to the other top-selling Pokemon games. They didn't sell poorly, but they didn't sell very well. But over the years, Generation 5 has built a reputation for itself of being one of, if not the best generation of Pokemon out there. Obviously, it's debatable. Obviously, everyone has a different opinion. Some people agree, some people disagree. Personally, I think it is the best generation. I love Gen 5. Black and White was one of the most nostalgic Pokemon games for me as a kid, which I can't believe I never had Black and White 2. I think after Black and White came out and I played through those games, I think that's when I got to like that age where I was kind of like over Pokemon, and then of course I came back to it a couple of years later. I low-key wish I never would have stopped playing Pokemon when I was a kid, but hey, I'm here now and I'm playing them again, and I'm going back to the old games that I've never played, like Sun and Moon, Black and White 2. But since those games have a really solid storyline that the community has really come to love over the last several years, they probably really don't want to affect that at all, and they don't want to give us another game that's going to probably have a poor storyline, even though I think Game Freak is definitely fixing themselves over the last several years of, you know, kind of mid games. Aside from Legends Arceus, we all love Legends Arceus, right? I think that Generation 10 is going to be good. I think Legends EA is going to be good. I know it's a bold claim to make because it's, you know, coming out pretty soon, but I hope that they're making the future games good. If you guys enjoyed this video though, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, leave down a comment if you'd want to see Black and White 3 or a Legends Generation 5 game. I personally would like to see a Legends Kyurem, and I'm sure most of you would as well. Alright guys, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.